Hello and welcome everybody to this episode 56 of the Thought Team Navigating Now Virtual Roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, as always, your host for our Roundtable series. We go live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Our goal with the Navigating Now series is to bring new thought leadership to those topics that are at the forefront of all of our business minds and our business planning. And today we've got two incredible guests with us at the table that we just can't wait to introduce. Before we do that, a couple of housekeeping items. For all of you who are tuning in, we want to thank our entire Navigating Now community for joining. We started this almost 60 weeks ago at the doorstep of the pandemic, and the community that we've been able to build through all of you engaging with the content, engaging with us as a team, and engaging with each other has been really incredible to see. And so for those of you who are stopping by on LinkedIn, we absolutely love our LinkedIn community. Feel free to say hello or drop a comment in the comments box. We also go live to YouTube and Facebook. So our YouTube and Facebook community, we welcome you to say hello as well too. All of our content, previous episodes, as well as current and future, can be found at thoughtteam.com/live. Today, we are just thrilled to be unpacking a topic that really matters in both the growth and the sustainability of brand and of business, and that is partnerships. So today's all about building legacy through partnerships, and we've got two great leaders at the table to help us unpack what has been a wonderful partnership for both the Kendra Scott community as well as the Inheritance of Hope community. So we've got leaders from both sides. First, I'd like to introduce Betsy Ogren. She's the Program Director for Inheritance of Hope. Thank you for joining us, Betsy.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yes, and we also have Sheena Wilde. Sheena is the VP of Philanthropy for Kendra Scott. You know, we've got so much to unpack today, and I know that our team and our community have already tuned in and said they're just so excited to have both of you. Clearly, Kendra Scott is such a well-known name, not just in fashion, but in business. You know, Betsy, what you all are doing at Inheritance of Hope has made an impact on our community, and I know so many others, so we're really excited to hear a little bit more about what you do. But at the center of this discussion is the partnership that both Kendra Scott and Inheritance of Hope are building and have been building over the course of the last several years. And I want to get there first. But first, our community love to meet new leaders. So let's learn a little bit more about you, Sheena and Betsy. The first question that I love to ask our panelists here is, I'd like you to go back to your childhood. You both are proven leaders in your respective industries. When you think back to your childhood, what is a very early example or expression or something that you did as a child or that showed up in your childhood where you look back and say, yeah, that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing today? How can your childhood be reflected in your leadership today? And maybe we'll start with you, Betsy.
Oh boy. Well, I was a bossy big sister, so I don't know if that's what I want to really draw upon, but I actually grew up in northern Minnesota on a resort. My parents' business was a small family resort. And so the time I was old enough to carry a bottle of Windex and a rag, we were all part of the team. And so definitely team-based, we were always part of helping families make great memories when they came on vacation. And so that's how we spent our summers, was kind of serving families through our family business, which this is the very last season actually that they're going to be open. My dad is retiring. So it feels like kind of coming full circle here with our family legacy.
That's incredible. And did you know, at that age, did you say, you know what, it feels like I'm going to be doing this type of work as I get older. No. This is what I want to do when I grow up. Not at all?
No, I thought I was going to be a teacher, and then I went to school planning on being a physical therapist. And then I ended up kind of switching tracks, and I did youth ministry for a while. And then I was a mom for 12 years. And then I snuck back in on staff with Inheritance of Hope. So I was all over the place.
Yeah, I love to hear about those kind of non-linear career paths. Sheena, what about you?
Well, I have always been quite the multitasker. I take on and do multiple things. So at the young age, I always was, playing soccer and dancing and in school plays and really doing all these different things to keep myself busy. But I think at the core of it, I always found myself loving to connect people together. So I would find joy in like having friends over that were from like my dance team or my soccer team. And I would, kind of bring them together and meet people. People could meet people from different places. And so I think that's really kind of where my love of connecting people together and then also just doing multiple things simultaneously, which is what I do in my current profession, is really where probably all of that had started for me.
Yeah. The multitasking is an interesting one. I think we can all recall as children, whether we enjoyed multitasking or not. And I think for those of us who did, we find ourselves in a role where you're juggling multiple balls. Yeah, yeah. And that's exciting. It's kind of cool to think back to your childhood. And, we also sometimes like to, and I recently have talked about, I talked to my folks about growing up and some of the things that they saw in me that is now coming through as a leader. So it's just so interesting to make that connection between what we did as a child and what we love to do today. It's really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. So let's hear a little bit about your respective organizations. It's just interesting when you put a major global brand like Kendra Scott at the table. I mean, there's so many different dimensions to Kendra Scott, both the company, the brand, your community. I know you've always had such a deep foundation in philanthropy. Sheena, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about Kendra Scott for the 2 or 3 people that don't know about Kendra Scott. Tell us about Kendra Scott and maybe even give us a little bit of the evolution of Kendra Scott, the company, over the course of the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes, I can definitely do that. So as some of you might know, Kendra Scott, we are a fashion and lifestyle brand. We like to refer to ourselves as a fashion meets philanthropy brand. And Kendra actually started the business 20 years ago. I would say we definitely have hit our stride over the course of the last, 5 to 8 years, but she started the business 20 years ago out of the spare bedroom, where she would go around with these beautifully crafted pieces of jewelry and go door to door, and until she got her first big break and really started as a wholesale business. And then we opened our first actual brick and mortar store in 2008, where we are headquartered in Austin, Texas. And the great thing about Kendra's business is that what has always inspired her to start her business are our core pillars of family, fashion, and philanthropy. And those are core pillars that she integrated into the business when she was just starting 20 years ago. And they're the core pillars of the business that remain, still today in the work that we do. So now we've got thousands of specialty boutiques you can find us in. You can find us in major wholesale accounts like Neiman's and Nordstrom's and Dillard's and Macy's. We've got 126 brick and mortar stores across the country. So it's been really cool to be able to watch the progression of the Kendra Scott company grow, but still really remain true and authentic to those core pillars of family, fashion, and philanthropy that Kendra started the brand on 20 years ago.
One of the things that I'm hearing in this progression or the evolution is that philanthropy was what the company, one of the 3 pillars that the company was founded on. And I think that is so unique. Oftentimes as companies scale, philanthropy is something that comes into the fold or into the evolution, or maybe even bolted on, once organizations have the capacity or even the culture for it. But tell us how philanthropy became one of the founding pillars of Kendra Scott.
Yeah, so Kendra actually started her first business when she was 19, and she started a business called the Hat Box, and the business was a hat shop, but she started that business also with already incorporating philanthropy into her business model, which was providing hats for chemotherapy patients. When that business had failed, she actually had her stepfather that was really sick and was going to pass away. And right before he passed away, he said these words to her: "You do good." And those words stuck to her, and they're kind of like our mantra that we follow at Kendra Scott. And when she started the business, and even when she wasn't making money yet, and she wanted to figure out how to give back to the community. So what do we do when we can't give financially? We figure out what we're really good at. And in Kendra's case, in the beginning days, she was really good at making jewelry. So she would give jewelry and make jewelry for different nonprofits in the community or friends and family so that they could utilize those in silent auctions or live auctions or whatever purposes they could. And then when she first started opening her stores, she said, let's let our nonprofits and our community members use this space as a place to also raise funds for individuals and nonprofits in need. And that was where our Kendra Gives Back program, which is still going on today, where we have supported over 30,000 charities since that program's inception, where people can come into our stores, host shopping events, and then we give back 20% of those proceeds. So that's how it all started. But as you mentioned, when you scale, how do you, when you go from one store to 126, can you keep those programs going? And I'm really proud to say that we do. And we still help, we host these Kendra Gives Back events across our store teams every single day. We give thousands of pieces to in-kind jewelry. But when we became more successful, we knew we could do more. We could make a bigger impact. And that's when we really started to really develop, more core programs and partnerships, like our fantastic partnership with Inheritance of Hope. So it remains at the forefront of our business. And, with COVID hitting and the pandemic, when our retail stores were closing, we doubled down on philanthropy even more than we ever have. So it's definitely a core pillar and still remains very authentic to who we are.
Yeah. A couple of points. One, the fact that you doubled down, through the pandemic is because your organization was rooted in philanthropy. That's not something you could have added on, right? Or introduced at the beginning of the pandemic and had the impact that you all have most likely had over the course of the last 12 to 18 months. The second thing too is, if this story, Kendra's story specifically, is not a vote for starting a company based on something that you love to do, I don't know what is. And it sounds like she really did love to give back. So you'd think that somebody who started a fashion brand or a jewelry line just simply loves jewelry and wants to take that and make that an organization. But what I'm hearing with the Kendra Scott story is that she really loved to serve people and give back. And jewelry was the vehicle, and fashion was the vehicle, which I just think is, again, fascinating. And how you all are able to have the impact that you have today. So thank you for sharing. That's incredible. Awesome. All right, Betsy, would love to bring you into the discussion, and then we'll find the communal space here. But Betsy, tell our community and those folks who are joining us on our social platforms, tell us a little bit about Inheritance of Hope and what you all are doing to drive philanthropy in community.
Yeah. So Inheritance of Hope is a nonprofit, and our mission is to serve young families facing the loss of a parent. And we have done this historically through hosting big retreats, like large group gatherings, where we bring families together from all over the country and help them build memories together and learn how to be intentional with their legacy. And then we help them really go out as a family and make lifelong memories together. So our organization started in 2007, so around the same time that Kendra was getting going. But we started when our co-founder was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer, and they started looking around for their little family. She had 3 small kids, or they did at the time, and they did not find resources that they were looking for. And so through their journey, Inheritance of Hope started in 2007, and we hosted our first retreat in 2008. And as we have, gone on, now we've served hundreds and hundreds of families and looked for new ways to do that. But really our signature offering has always been this legacy retreat. And on a legacy retreat in 2015, we had this lovely woman. Lovely isn't even the word. We had this super spunky girl come as one of our moms, and she had metastatic breast cancer. And I remember helping her on the night that she was making her legacy video. It's one of the things we do as part of our retreat weekend. And she mentioned that she had this really good friend who owned a jewelry company. And so we looked around and we were like, okay, that's cool. She's like, I'm going to tell her to get in touch with you guys. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, people have lots of ideas and suggestions of ways that we could raise money to serve more families. And so this was one that, like we heard about it and then nothing happened for a short time. And then we heard from Sheena. So that's how our story is going to come together eventually. That's a teaser.
That is cool. No, I love that. And I'd love to just ask a follow-up question or two. There's someone within our team, Amanda Miller, who has been also a part of the Inheritance of Hope community. She's been on a couple of these retreats, and as her friend and now her colleague, anytime she comes back from one of these, I mean, it's transformative for her. I mean, you can hear it in the stories that she tells, and you can even just see it in her face and her aura and her energy, and it sticks with her. There are a lot of opportunities, to give back, especially these days with technology the way that it is. But it sounds like Inheritance of Hope has a very organic approach that is rooted in like the point of impact that you all have, and that's keeping people who are interested very close to specific families who need it. How do you keep that organic, like kind of white glove point of impact approach as you bring Inheritance of Hope to more and more families?
So that's something that we are very intentional about. Our kind of model of serving is to make every family feel really, really special. It's important to us that we know the names of every family member. And throughout the weekend, we have groups each day. So parents are in a group together. We do a session that's split for diagnosed parents and caregivers. And then each child in the family is also in a group with kids their own age. So they can really kind of build some tools. And so every family is assigned volunteers. And that's where Amanda comes in. She's one of our great volunteers, but it is a blast to volunteer at these things. So people wonder, oh, is it really sad when you have a diagnosed parent and people are there? And it is so much fun to be with these families. So in groups, when we're making memories together at theme parks, our volunteers are there to be the ones carrying backpacks. It is hard work. We're exhausted, but it is just such a privilege, I guess, to be able to kind of shoulder that burden for the weekend and just allow families to have a great time.
And how have you been maintaining these connections and these experiences in more of a virtual first world recently?
Well, we have actually done a lot of pivoting since our last event, which was with Kendra Scott, actually in February of 2020. We hosted a big retreat that for 31 families in February. And then we hosted another small group of people in early March of 2020. We squeaked in and out of Magic Kingdom before COVID hit. But that was specifically for a group of people who had all lost their loved one. And so we called it a care retreat and had a lot of fun with those people. So many of our volunteers are connected to us as families that we served in the past. And then when they think about their retreat and how much, how well they felt loved, they want to come and give back to another family. So that is one point. We have a lot of families served who come back to volunteer, and then other people who are just connected with us for lots of different reasons. They're donors, they've run for Team IOH. We recruit lots of great volunteers, but they keep coming back because they have so much fun with us. As I was saying, that we have pivoted. We were supposed to have multiple events throughout the last several months of COVID. And so we have moved our events online. So now you can come to a Hope at Home weekend and spend some time together virtually, which all of this virtual stuff was kind of in our long range plan. COVID really launched us forward actually in our thinking and our planning for the future. So we have weekend events now throughout the year, as well as ongoing services through every month. So we have Hope at Home groups, is what we call them, and they meet every night of the week. We have groups for kids and young adults and diagnosed parents, specific diagnoses. We have groups for people who have already lost their loved one called Life After Loss. And it has really been an opportunity to form a community of people who are really, really wanting that connection, and just being in a world where everybody now knows how to use Zoom, and it's, we don't even think about it. You just click the link and here we are. And so we've actually really been able to serve families well throughout this new world.
You know, I think we're hearing from a few folks in chat that have been either volunteers or have been a part of the Inheritance of Hope community. I mean, you just have some, you know, advocates, some real evangelists, and that helps through times of change. You know, when you're asking your community, your volunteers to stretch a little bit or to think of new ways of doing things, it's those relationships and those partnerships that you've developed over the course of time that are probably showing up the most today. So thank you for sharing that story.
As Betsy had mentioned, she came across a family that was served back in 2015. And coincidentally, she mentioned she knew this jewelry designer, that now you're probably connecting the dots as you're hearing the story, that jewelry designer is Kendra Scott. So when I've been with Kendra Scott for 7 years, and I was sitting at my desk one day and I get this note from Kendra, and she says, hey, so there's this organization. One of my friends went on this retreat and we don't know much about it other than they went to Disney World and it was great. Can you figure out who they are? And can we see how we can support them? And I just remember sitting at my desk, like Googling, thinking, Make-A-Wish, like, you know what I mean? Like trying to connect the dots between all these things. And we finally came across, you know, we think this is Inheritance of Hope. And so we got in contact with Inheritance of Hope when we started chatting. But I want to back up just a little bit further too, of who is Holly, the woman that we're talking about, that really is at the core of where this partnership, you know, comes together. And when we talk about legacy, how she's, you know, really helping us at Kendra Scott live her legacy out through the work that we're so grateful to do with Inheritance of Hope. So unfortunately, Holly Rothel Kitchen lost her life to metastatic breast cancer shortly after she attended the Inheritance of Hope retreat. And, you know, she was with Kendra a lot during her journey. And when she passed, right before she passed away, she said to Kendra, please use your platform to do good and to advocate for us and metastatic breast cancer, given it is stage 4, there is no cure. And what can you do to keep making sure that we can still keep fighting to find a cure and support those families and people that lose them. So that was the inspiration around the work that Kendra Scott started dabbling into the breast cancer space. We are also all 95% female. Obviously, our customers skew heavily female. As we know, 1 in 8 females are diagnosed with breast cancer. So naturally, the breast cancer space was an easy fit for Kendra Scott and our employees and our customers to get behind. But really what leads our philanthropic efforts is Kendra's inspiration. So her inspiration for Holly and metastatic breast cancer and our just, you know, inspiration for breast cancer in general is what, you know, got us started into this space. And so you know, once we found Inheritance of Hope, we were so excited, and we weren't really at that time able to invest a ton financially in kickstarting things. For us, you know, giving large grants was like, oh, you know, it was new territory for us. And Inheritance of Hope is actually one of our first partners that we were able to give a larger gift to. And I think Betsy and probably Heidi, who's another phenomenal woman that works, and Jill, that all work for Inheritance of Hope, probably were like, what did we get ourselves into? Working with a fashion brand, trying to host a charity retreat, because we came in with like, we want to turn the room into Under the Sea, and we want like fireworks shooting, you know, Kendra Scott is big and bold and yellow and joyful. And anyways, it was just fantastic. I'll never forget our first retreat we hosted together. And, you know, that just grew. And every year there was no going back. We were hooked. We were going to give to Inheritance of Hope. We went from 10 families to 20 families to 31 families. And, you know, we will always forever be invested in supporting our Inheritance of Hope family. So I love just to provide that story and all of that content.
Great.
How we got to where we are sitting today.
I love that. And again, I love the timeline, because it shows that this is so far from a transactional partnership, right? This is so far from, you know, you all, Sheena, looking at a group of potential partners, vetting them and choosing the top 2 or 3. I mean, this is deeply, deeply rooted in very personal connections and stories, all the way up to Kendra herself, which is just so exciting to hear. And again, I'm even seeing some of the excitement in chat in terms of the retreat experience. and what it's like to, to serve an organization like Inheritance of Hope, and vice versa. Those that are a part of Inheritance of Hope, how exciting it is to partner with a group like Kendra Scott. So I want to ask, Sheena, as your folks have been to these retreats, they come back and they say what about these retreats? Like what are they just so lit up about and so excited about? Because I've heard from Amanda, one of ours, but I'd love to hear, like, what are the Inheritance of Hope retreats known for within your organization?
Well, there's a waiting list that's really long that people are trying to get through to get onto these events. But, one of the number one things that Betsy had mentioned is, like, volunteering is a lot of work, not only physically, but emotionally. Yeah. And when our volunteers come back, they're so happy and they're so joyful, also emotional, and just really taking on the weight of being a part of these families that it's life-changing, and they come back just feeling so empowered and so excited, really just to continue to figure out how we live out the P pillar, but also how they can too continue to stay connected to the families that they're serving. And it's been really tough for volunteers like myself and some of our team members, like our CEO, Tom Nolan, who serves personally on retreats with his daughter, and, some of our other teammates that have been alongside us over the course of a lot of retreats. We've lost a lot of families, and that's been difficult for us to be able to see the impact and be and feel the impact, and then have to go along this journey with Inheritance of Hope that does this every single day. And I also think that's why the relationship that we have with the Inheritance of Hope organizations and the volunteers is so authentic and true and genuine, is because they've helped us get through really understanding what it's like to put your money into a good place, see the impact, feel the impact, and then understand what they go through after they serve these families. So our volunteers are they all want to keep coming back and want to keep volunteering, and whenever they can. Like I said, it's a fight to come on this retreat for our employees.
Man, and just to hear that the demand is so high, again, Betsy, it must be such a great KPI for you all, and it's almost like immeasurable, right? The excitement, the eagerness, the willingness to step in. Tell us a little bit about how you all experience that.
Well, I think what makes these guys such great partners is they always elevate what we're doing. When we first started planning, we were laughing so hard because every conversation was about, like, well, how could we elevate? But instead of trying to come in and bring their own elements to what we were doing, like, we started with exactly what a great retreat plan looks like. And then they found just really thoughtful ways to make it sparkly and fun and elevate what we were already doing. So from the very beginning, they just demonstrated great partnership in terms of being able to take what we were doing and take it to the next step. But we also, like I said, work so hard as volunteers. It is, not every person is necessarily equipped or willing or interested in coming and being that involved and being willing to just enter into that volunteer role. So every single person that has come from Kendra Scott is one of our, right along with one of our very best volunteers. So that is just a whole different level of partnership than simply writing a check, just being so invested. And so it really brings a lot of energy to us to just know that there's another group of people who are so excited. I mean, we are proud wearers of our Kendra Scott jewelry. There's lots of bling around retreats. There's a color bar that they bring to retreats, and people can make a piece of jewelry. So we definitely wear that proudly and excitedly. And lots of families have been blessed through picture frames. I mean, even just like the tangible things that they take home from Kendra Scott really continue with the excitement of a retreat and go home with people too.
That's incredible. We're in partnership with our clients, and we've got a community of partners that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And one of the clear indicators of a very healthy partnership is that both sides are challenging each other and encouraging each other to elevate. I love that word, right? And so again, that makes it less of and nowhere near a transaction, and way more of a mutual relationship of which you both are co-creating, you both are imagining and reimagining, and there's just such equal footing. And that footing is a deep, deep passion for what you all do, both respectively and collectively. And as well, it sounds like also just unique experiences. It sounds like, particularly these retreats are just such unique experiences, and both sides add to that experience, which is exciting to hear as well too. So Betsy, I'm curious, as you've got partnerships like Kendra Scott, you've got others. Are there criteria that you look for, criteria that you have when you are either seeking or pursuing or talking to potential partners to work with? What are the 2 or 3 kind of big requirements for an organization that you all work with?
Yeah, well, we are always looking for partnerships, of course, but Kendra Scott really was also one of our first big partners to come in, and they have helped us actually find some other people to partner with. So just a shared spirit of wanting to really bless families and serve them well and inspire hope. But definitely what we have with Kendra Scott is unique in terms of not only the financial gift, but the total buy-in of their team and being part of like every step of planning all the way through, and then even afterwards with follow-up.
Yeah.
I was just going to jump in and say, what you guys both are mentioning from the partnership perspective, it's, people in business, it's so interesting on how corporations and nonprofits find each other, and really both partners need to assess if whether it's a good fit for you to work together. Because sometimes, you might identify a nonprofit partner that might not be the best fit, or a nonprofit might identify a brand that might not be the best fit, and you guys can come to those terms. And the other thing that I like to note is, when we are at Kendra Scott looking for nonprofit partners, we really like the idea of people being open to customizing things and to really thinking outside of the box and coming up with unique experiences versus just kind of asking us to look at the menu of opportunities and sign on the dotted line and this is what you get. Like, that was also a really fantastic thing for us in working with Inheritance of Hope. And why they are such a great partner for Kendra Scott too, is the ability for us to customize the way that we want to work together. And so, as Betsy mentioned, we didn't want to come in and mass produce and change their retreats. We just wanted to come in and figure out how we could enhance what the number one priority for us, which was to make sure that the families had the best time that they could have. So, I like that point on partners. And as we at Kendra Scott have brought along other partners that we think share the same values as we do, and we brought them forth to the Inheritance of Hope family, like our friends at Dillard's. We work really closely with our wholesaler, the Dillard's, and Dillard's is very starting to get more involved with Inheritance of Hope. They share in the mission. They do in-kind donations. There's a team of them that, support this event we have called Holly Day every year on Metastatic Awareness Breast Cancer Day that gives back to Inheritance of Hope. So the partnership has to work on both sides. And both teams have to be open to being willing to customize and think outside of the box to really make things work. And we've really found a fantastic stride in our partnership together over the last several years to really create something amazing.
I love that. And Betsy, you all must love working with brands like Kendra Scott, who really embody this spirit of getting involved, of being hands-on, of proactivity. And I'll pose this question to both of you because it's coming in chat, and I think it's a great question. How can corporations, and maybe Sheena, we'll start with you, how can corporations, like Kendra Scott, embody this spirit of proactivity when it comes to starting a philanthropy program?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I always like to say is you have to first listen to what your internal employees are passionate about, what your external customers are passionate about, and what is the product and or what is the focus of what you guys do. And then from there, you can start identifying where is it that you want to make the biggest impact. And so, for corporations, I like to see, like, if you're, for example, I don't know, a makeup brand, and you guys are really passionate about making people feel beautiful or making people take your products, and maybe you're really invested in women, how can you start and develop a program that maybe does makeup work for underprivileged teens going to prom or going to pediatric hospitals and do so? It's really first just identifying what your customer resonates with, what your product stands for, what your employees are passionate about, really taking that back and thinking about, okay, how can we develop a program where we can indeed make the biggest impact? And for us at Kendra Scott, we really quickly identified that women and children are our number one priority. And as we grew, I challenged all of us to think about, how do we really think deeply about how you can make the biggest impact, and where are those proof points, and where we're serving and helping women and children. So once you kind of develop that, we were then able to develop different places that we wanted to give. So corporations can get even deeper. We're in health and wellness, education and entrepreneurship, women empowerment. So that's really my biggest place, is just corporations stepping back and listening to their employees and their customers and their product, and developing where they think they can start making the biggest impact, and not just monetarily, using their services, using their product, using their hours and their skill sets, of really thinking about how they can create a robust program that isn't just financial. It's also getting your hands dirty and dedicating your services back into those that need it.
Yeah, that's great. And Betsy, what does Inheritance of Hope do to, activate folks within your partner organizations, keep them coming back, keep them engaged?
Right. Well, it has been a little trickier because we are not doing the thing that really fuels that time together. So we have definitely volunteer opportunities for our online people. But one of the connecting factors that really applies to everyone is that, our tagline is every family deserves a legacy. And so really thinking through when somebody wants to partner with us, we have something to offer to every family, to every person, whether they have a diagnosis or not. And so there are elements of our offerings that really apply, and we hope people will take, seriously. None of us is promised tomorrow. So that's just kind of a call across the board that there are things that we can all do to be really intentional with the time that we do have and our loved ones, and just thinking through the legacy that we want to leave. Works, for anybody at any partnership level. So, yeah,
no, I appreciate that. Again, I mean, there's just such alignment between, again, the values and the energy that you both bring to the partnership, and that's clearly one of the successful ingredients to this. Maybe one of the last questions, just on the topic of this partnership. I want to go back to philanthropy, and Sheena is somebody who is in this space all day, every day, and you're at the forefront of this great partnership. How has giving back or philanthropy changed in the last 18 to 24 months for Kendra Scott, or maybe it hasn't? I know that it's just, this is giving back and investing and finding ways to help has been a heightened, if not sometimes new, conversation for organizations. Since the pandemic and kind of this new world that we're all living in, has this discussion shifted within Kendra Scott? Has it elevated or heightened? How has it changed in the last 12 to 18 months for you all?
Yeah, so like I had mentioned, when the pandemic hit, one of the things I value the most about the company and our leadership is, as I mentioned, even when our doors were closing, we were like, wait, how are we going to help people? We needed to figure out quickly what we could do. Who did we know? Who could we call? And we really quickly turned on, a program where we were able to help kiddos get lunch because they weren't going to school. So they, and the way we were doing it is through offering a product that people could purchase through our e-commerce experience, that we could quickly be able to make a difference. But we also were challenged to figure out how to help these nonprofits, because as I had mentioned, a lot of them were used to coming into our stores, hosting their events in store. Events were canceled. Nonprofit galas were being canceled. Those are their streams of income. They were coming up with new ways that they were trying to get, people to donate. And so we had to pivot with them. So we're really thinking about how do we meet our customers or our nonprofit partners and where they are with their lives during that time. So we were able to shift our Kendra Gives Back events to being virtual. Our teams quickly were able to create codes that they could send out. It actually, creating this model for us actually is something that we'll continue to do moving forward, because it allowed people to not physically have to be in a store to be able to give back to support their favorite charity, but they could take the code, they could send the code out, and then people could also purchase online and they could contribute back, you know, to that charity. We also had to take a hard look at how else we could support through our product. And at that time, we weren't selling any form of masks or anything like that. But we quickly looked, and Kendra called me, and I'll never forget this day. She said, we have a ton of bandanas sitting in our distribution center. And I said, okay. She was like, we need to figure out how to sew masks. And this is before people were sewing masks. I'm not joking. And I, you know, and I'll credit one of my team members. She went to Joann Fabrics. She found a woman that was like sewing something. And she's like, do you know how to create patterns? And she was like, I'm trying to do a mask. And this woman was like, I'm actually trying to create masks for my family who's, you know, at one of our hospitals here in Austin. Anyways, long story short, we hit up the fashion industry because we have a lot of people. We hit up our design and we said, oh. And we were able to sew these bandanas, you know, out of our homes and get them out to the frontline workers, and then quickly be able to produce more bandanas so we could, you know, give these to our frontline workers who were on the front line. So we just have continuously tried to pivot and think about where we can, you know, come up with the biggest impact. So whether that was making masks out of our homes and donating those to frontline workers, or whether that was creating these virtual codes. You know, I worked with a lot of nonprofits of like, how do we shift your gala that you just lost and still do something virtual? How do you create a virtual gala? You know, and we were like, don't worry, we're still here. We're here right next to you. Let's take our funds. We're not getting rid of those funds. Let's invest them in the way that you need right now. Because a lot of these families and these programs, they were scrambling because they were like, our kids need after school care, our parents need relief, we need lunches. And we were like, let's shift these dollars, figure out where they can go. So that's kind of how everything is, has changed and evolved. And, you know, we're still doing that to this day, and really thankful that we were able to pivot and still find ways to be able to serve our communities.
And I still go back to how fascinating it is that philanthropy has always been one of your three core pillars, right? And how that shows up in times where it matters most, you know, and it's why it was so easy for you to field that phone call and say like, yeah, let's figure it out with the bandanas.
I know. And, you know, we had some crazy Texas storms. I don't know, maybe people saw this on the news, and, you know, Texas shut down. We don't get snow. Water was off. Power was off. And I mean, my colleague was sitting in front of her fireplace, burning her furniture with her kids on a mattress because she hadn't had power. And she's calling me on the phone saying, how do we get water out to the people that need it, because they're stuck in their houses right now and they don't have access to it. So we were on the phone, like Command Central, calling our friends down at the pizza place or at the water partners that we've had. And we were like, put this in the trucks. Let's find the drivers. Let's get this out there. And we didn't care that we were also sitting there like freezing with like no water. So to your point, it becomes like just a natural instinct that is embedded in us, in the culture that is Kendra Scott. And, you know, you feel it, and you feel it when Kendra leads. And I've just been so thankful to be able to bring her vision of philanthropy to life over the last 7 years.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And Betsy, on your side, you know, outside of the, you know, flip to more virtual touch points and engagements, what has shown up in your team over the course of the last 12 to 18 months? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you can hear in Sheena's voice all of the creativity required. And so I would kind of echo that, just looking for new ways to be able to connect and serve. And we obviously used to have things waiting for families. We had resources that we would use in kids' rooms on site altogether. So when we did our first at-home retreat, now we call them Hope at Home weekends, we quickly figured out like, what could we pack in a box so that it could arrive on the doorstep of these families right as the weekend is starting and give them every single thing that they're going to need to be able to make great memories. So just, you know, being able and willing to quickly think through a new way. I think that's one of the things that our leaders are really good at, leading us through as a staff. And so I think that's, you know, it just echoes what Kendra Scott is doing as well, just being creative and ready to do whatever it takes that's kind of a spirit we share definitely in serving well.
Yeah, you know, one of the themes that we've heard in talking with a lot of small and even big business leaders in this platform particularly is that, you know, our worlds collectively got smaller over the course of the last 12 to 18 months. And so, you know, as business leaders, as philanthropists, as folks who care, I think one of our natural instincts is we kind of turn and we look and we say, how can I make an impact with what's kind of directly around me? And I'm hearing that in a few stories that you're bringing through, Sheena and Betsy, in the spirit of what you all do. Our worlds did get a lot smaller, but I think the positive byproduct is that we've all collectively been able to find very local and very organic ways of pouring into our community. And if you were to tell me 5 years ago that, you know, we would be investing in a platform where we're talking to leaders and business owners that are completely outside of our industry, leaders like yourselves, I would have told you that you're crazy and that's not in the business plan. But this community and this discussion was born from just the need to kind of turn around and think a little bit outside the box and share really good stories and make very local impact. And I want to thank you both for stepping into the discussion, sharing how you've made that impact. And it is very clear that both incredible organizations are better in partnership. And I thought today was a great example of the real key ingredients to those partnerships. So again, I want to thank you and I want to congratulate you both for being at the forefront of such a beautiful and meaningful partnership. I think a lot of learnings from your descriptions and your stories. So thank you both.
Yeah.
All right. If you have 2 more minutes, we also like to end on a little bit of a lightning round. So we started the episode getting to know you all as leaders. I think there's a lot of really excited folks that want to learn a little bit more about you, Betsy and Sheena. So, and I'm going to kind of bounce between the two of you. If you have something to add, please share. I'm sure folks would be interested in what are you both reading, listening to, following today that you're super excited about? And either one can jump in.
Oh, or Betsy can too.
All right. I was just going to say, I'm hoping for like a couple more summer beach reads. I would like to just read something mindless that has nothing to do with headlines, maybe over Labor Day weekend.
I can recommend that. I'm reading a book called Malibu Rising right now, which is on the best sellers list, which is really good. And
just finished that actually.
Oh, great. Okay.
Wow.
And I actually have, 2 other books that were recommended to me by my boss. They're good leadership books, The Way of the Shepherd and The Simple Stick. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of those, but it's about leadership and team leading. And The Simple Stick is based on the story of Apple and Steve Jobs and simplification of the way that you think about doing things. So those are 2 books that I'm like really into right now. And then I'm just really into my Peloton app.
Nice.
Yeah, as with a lot of other folks as well too. Favorite moment of a legacy retreat? I'm sure there's many, but Betsy, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, last year at our very last retreat, we were having a dance party, which we've done the last few years with Kendra Scott. And they brought in some Disney characters to just like help really make the magic happen. So people could get their picture taken with Elsa or Minnie and Mickey, or for example, Buzz Lightyear. And Buzz didn't have a long line of people to take pictures. So Buzz jumped into the dance floor. And after, I don't even know, like many, many, many dances, he missed perhaps some of his mandatory breaks, and Buzz got super sick. So he goes running out the door. He did not break character, and Buzz started throwing up in his costume all the way down the hallway until he got into the room, and then the hat, he was tearing it up on the dance floor, as you see in
it was one heck of a dance party. So I was there for that. That's a great memory. I have so many memories, but I have to say my favorite is there were 2 families that we were serving on the care retreat, which remind you, these are the retreats where they've already unfortunately lost their significant loved one. And I was paired with these 2 families, Carl and Lisa and their kids. And we were going to start our journey, our very first start of our day. And we were going to go to Animal Kingdom. but I just had found out that this family had never really flown on a plane. They've never really gone on any rides. And we sent Carl on the Flight of the Passage, which if anybody's been to Disney, it's like a simulator ride. You're flying through, you know, it's all these things. So he comes out, he gets very sick and he ends up having to leave. And so myself and Lisa and his boys and their kids, we took over the day and we all just hung out. So fast forward to the end of the retreat, you know, family stayed together the whole time. Come several months after, we all learn that now Carl and Lisa are dating and then engaged and then they've been married. So that's my favorite retreat. My legacy retreat is that we were able to serve two families, and they were my families that I got to spend my time with, that all came together and they are now married. So that's probably my favorite.
And there's not always throwing up involved. There's really
I know. Like I don't want to even call that out as a common thread, but man, it's incredible to hear these moments. I'm sure there's just a ton others, very specific moments. And again, I mean, I can just sense the excitement in the folks that are tuning in today that have been a part of these experiences. Okay, maybe the last question here. Each of you have to do without one of the two of the following from here until infinity. You have to do without delivery food, meaning, you know, DoorDash, Caviar, all of those services, or you have to do without streaming television. Hulu, Netflix, Apple TV Plus. You've got to pick one to do without forever. What would that be?
Mine would be delivery food because I love to cook and I don't really get a lot of food to cook. So, okay. But I can cook without streaming TV.
Yeah, we're gonna hold on to the TV. Yes. Same here.
Both holding on to the TV. See, I thought this would be a more difficult question than it is, but I've polled about like 15 people and they all say, don't get rid of the TV. I would never get rid of my TV. That's awesome. Well, I think we're at about time. Again, I want to thank you both, Betsy and Sheena, for such a wonderful discussion today. You know, I can tell that there is such care and such passion in the partnership that both of you as individuals have developed and your respective organizations. Hopefully those folks who've tuned in have just learned so much from what makes a great partnership. So again, thank you both for tuning in. Betsy, how can people learn a little bit more about Inheritance of Hope?
Yeah, inheritanceofhope.org. So,
wonderful.
Look us up, lots of information there.
Awesome. And Sheena, how can people learn more about what you all are doing at Kendra Scott?
Yeah, you can go to kendrascott.com or to any of our stores, but I really want to mention that we hope that everyone will come together on October 13th, which is Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day, in honor of Holly Rothel Kitchen, and support, because we will donate all of our 20% of our proceeds online and in stores that day back to Inheritance of Hope, to our annual legacy retreat. So more details to come on that, but that's how people can find out about us.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks to our very lively community that tuned in today, those folks that registered for the event and were sending love and some great comments in chat box. Thank you. Thank you to our LinkedIn community for joining. Hopefully you were able to stop and listen. All of this content, this episode and future episodes, can be found at thoughttium.com/live. We'd also like to share that next week, same time, same channel, we'll be going live with another great leader, Peter Rupert, the CEO of Fusion Education Group. Peter has learned about and been involved in the scaling of several businesses. And he's got a lot of lessons that he's going to be bringing to the Navigating Now Roundtable series. So Peter will be joining us next week. One of our own, Grift Krenbrink, will be facilitating that discussion. Again, you can register for these events at thoughttium.com/live. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you next week at 3 o'clock.